Balancing intimacy and love is harder than most think. Please check this out.
Have you ever heard of the Madonna horror complex?
Yeah, I thought that was disproven, but yeah, go ahead.
Well, I think it's more of, this is where I think things like evolutionary psychology are challenging, because part of our psychology is, there's a lot of research coming out around right brain development and the development in the unconscious. There's a guy named Alan Shore who has done some phenomenal work. He's got a book called Right Brain Psychology and
Got it at home.
Developmentally Unconscious, and it is astounding when you see how our unconscious mind, which is a huge part of how we identify, but a huge part of how we relate to others, is actually developed and formed. And, you know, a lot of it is within the first 3 years, but the main part of it is that your unconscious doesn't work like your conscious mind does, right? It works through archetypes and myths and stories and symbolism. And for a lot of men, they do fall into this kind of Madonna horror complex because they
You're going to have to explain what it is.
Madonna horror complex is when the sort of Cole's notes of it, or Cliff notes, I don't remember what they have here in America, but the short version of it is that you fall in love with a woman and you project the kind of puritanical, idealistic version and view of a woman onto her. Jung would say that you project the purest version of your anima, of your own feminine within your psyche onto her. And you start to treat her as this very sort of perfect, pure, wonderful version of the feminine that you never want to sully, you never want to mistreat, you never want to any of those things. And so what happens is that you sort of bifurcate your vision of that woman, and you never interact with her by bringing maybe the truth of disappointment to her, or when you're upset, or when she's done something that you didn't like. And so resentment starts to build, and you bifurcate your own sexual desires for her. This is the big part of the Madonna horror complex, that for a lot of men, they will find a woman that they love and that they really want to be with, but they find themselves not being able to bring the sort of sexual vitality that they've had in past relationships to this woman that they really love and that they really admire. And this is where a lot of infidelity happens, is that a man will be with a woman that he wants to have kids with and marry and that he really loves and yada, 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 but he takes the primal sexual nature within himself, how he wants to actually be in the bedroom, and does not bring that to the Madonna.
Why?
Because that would be, I don't know what a word could use, but like sullying or bringing down, desecrating the Virgin Mary, right? Desecrating the Madonna, desecrating this image of this very pure, loving, kind, nurturing embodiment of the feminine.
What's the genesis of that?
Great question. So you can grow up with a mother that you held in that esteem, right? If you grew up in an environment where you had this mother that, she was maybe a single mom and your dad wasn't in the picture, and so she was your only primary attachment, and she was very loving and nurturing and kind, and so you kind of idolized her, and there's this idolization that happened. Or the inverse is usually very common, right? Mom was disconnected, she neglected you, she was abandoning, she was harmful or abusive, and so you created a kind of caricature or an archetype in your mind of the ideal woman that you wanted to be with. If only mom was like this, I'd be happy. If only mom was just loving and kind, I'd be happy. And so that archetype exists inside of your unconscious, and it lives inside of there. And you kind of walk through the world looking at women saying, I wonder which one is going to fulfill this. And then you project that onto the women that you start to date. And eventually you find a woman that's like, she meets all the right requirements, and it just goes heavy, gets projected onto her really heavily. And so this sort of, this projection of the idealistic woman gets layered over top of the woman that's actually in front of you.
It's a very specific type of idealistic woman, right? Because you could say, I want an ideal woman in the bedroom, right, and that would be on the other side.
Right. Yeah. And so what a lot of men end up doing is that they find they find this woman, they fall in love. It's like everything that they've ever wanted, but there's parts of themselves that they never bring into the relationship. So they're usually, some of the characteristics are like they're usually completely annihilated whenever that woman is disappointed, right? She's disappointed, she's upset, he's done something. It's like catastrophic for that man. She's usually on a pedestal. So you have this like one up, one down type of dynamic where she's the, over-functioning and he's the chronic under-functioner, right? Everything that's wrong in the relationship is because of him, and, he's always doing something wrong.
And this is his perspective.
That's his perspective, right? It might not be her perspective. And slowly he'll start to withhold parts of himself. He'll withhold maybe the more aggressive part of himself, or he'll withhold his boundaries. He'll withhold his wants and needs and desires. So he'll withhold all these things. This is like classic people pleasers and nice guys. And they'll withhold all these parts, but they'll also withhold the like primal sexual energy. So the ways that they want to engage sexually with that woman, they'll withhold those. And then it has nowhere to go. And then they'll find a whore, right? They'll find an archetype of the whore, whether it's through pornography, an OnlyFans girl, the porn that they're watching, or somebody that they start to idolize online, or somebody that they actually find. And so I see a lot of men that are unfaithful that have gone through this cycle, is that they've bifurcated their vision, or they've separated out their vision of the woman that they're with, and they've taken parts of themselves that they would normally want to bring into the relationship and either tried to kill them off, like, oh, that's not okay, that primal way that I want to be with that woman, I'm going to try and kill that off. Or they just have a different place that they get that need met, right? Porn, OnlyFans, etc.
How do guys combine the two?
It's pretty uncomfortable. You have to start to bring those more usually primal elements that you would bring to
a one-night stand.
Yeah, to a one-night stand, or to a woman that you weren't in love with, or or even just the more primal elements of admitting that you're disappointed, or that you're upset, or that you're angry. So you have to start to take up some more territory. You have to start to have needs. You have to have some desires. You have to let those needs and those desires be known within the relationship, and start to say, you know what, I've never actually told you what I want. I've never actually told you what my expectations are. I've never actually told you what it is that I desire, in the bedroom. And so I'm going to start to expose some of these things and bring them forward. And you start to do that slowly and incrementally and consistently. And you start to bring that more shadow-oriented or primal self back into the relationship. And it can be challenging, because what starts to happen is that woman slowly comes off the pedestal, and your projections of the feminine start to, get taken off of her. Because for a lot of men, what happens is that they project onto the women the parts of themselves that they feel deficient in, right? So she's so compassionate. She's so loving. And meanwhile, inside of him, he lacks self-compassion. He's not loving to himself at all. He's, ripping himself a new asshole every single time he fucks up. So we start to dismantle this pure, perfect image of that woman. And if the funny thing is that if that man stays with that woman for long enough, stays with the Madonna for long enough, she will slowly turn into Medusa. Seriously. She'll slowly turn into this embodiment of what he resents and what he hates, and he'll kind of become bitter, and she'll become this archetype of something that he has disdain for and contempt towards. And a lot of that is because he hasn't brought forward his needs, wants, and desires, his expectations. So he starts to see her, this Madonna, he starts to see her as the embodiment of everything that refuses to meet his needs, when it's actually him refusing to bring forward what he needs, wants, and desires.